Matt is the social entrepreneur and creative professional who most recently founded Clough, and they are a backpack company.
Ooh, there's a laptop.
They make backpacks, and then 10% of every purchase goes to fund public education in Tanzania. Why don't we start a little bit, just kind of tell us how you had the idea for Stone and where you were when you kind of came up with it.
Okay. So I was actually in college at the time. I've always really been into the outdoors, so I was always hiking, climbing, doing trail runs, anything outdoors, like you name it, I was doing it. And I always had this dream of climbing the 7 summits, which, if you're familiar with that, it's the highest peak on every continent. While I was in college, I had the opportunity to check one of those off the list, and it was Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania. So I flew to Africa to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, and my primary goal was to get to the summit of the mountain. That's literally all I cared about. Somehow I managed to make it to the summit, and as I turned around from the summit, one of my porters came up to me and was just like very, very happy, gave me this huge hug, and we ended up holding hands and going back down to Kibo Hut together. And then I realized that he was the sole reason I was able to make it to the summit. He was the one waking me up with tea, he was cooking my meals, he was carrying my heavy-ass bag as I was carrying this tiny little day pack. And without his help, I wouldn't have been able to get there. So for the 2 days descending the mountain, I was more focused on him and the other porters and like how they live their lives in Tanzania. And I learned that they all make $1 a day. And the one thing that they want more than anything else in the world is to be able to put their children through school. The one thing they understand, it's like a pillar for sustained economic growth. And two, they just understand like investing in education is really important. So I really wanted to do something to help and design this mountain-inspired rucksack where each purchase supports a child's education in Tanzania.
What was your next step?
Next step was basically just defaulting to action. I had never started a business before, so I literally just like went on Craigslist and bought a sewing machine for $200 from a trailer park in Tucson, Arizona, and bought a bunch of very overpriced canvas and started sewing out these really shitty canvas bags and like convincing my friends and family to buy them for 20 bucks and saying that the money was going to go back to Benson and all the other porters in Tanzania.
And so how did you go from just you buying overpriced canvas? How did you scale that up? Because it's a little more than that now,
Totally.
as far as I understand it.
So I was in Arizona at the time. It was just a side project. And I was working for Yelp selling advertising and then going home and sewing up his bag and trying to figure out like what to do. At this time, I didn't even know like what PR was. I didn't know how to approach a retail store. I didn't know really anything. I just knew I wanted to help people in Tanzania, and that was it. So I was kind of hitting a dead end because I needed to pay the bills and was working 40 hours a week. So I reached out to a bunch of organizations, and luckily Tom's reached out to me and said, "We love your story, we want you to come out and do an internship." So I jumped on that opportunity, moved out here, did a couple internships with them, and like in that process was completely transparent about what I was doing, what I was trying to do, and they were just like, anytime I would tell anyone in that organization what I was trying to do, their face would just light up, and they would just say like, "How can I help? What can I do?" And they were really sort of like that factor that took it from like point A to point B,
The tipping point.
to allow me to really like launch the company in a way that was like a little bit more sustainable.
Did they help you, and can you talk a little bit about Knock?
Totally. So Tom's actually the nonprofit partner that we're connected to right now. If you purchase a backpack, $10 from that is wired to the Knock Foundation, and they distribute that money into scholarships, school supplies, and school lunches. There were 2 reasons why we partnered with the Knock Foundation. One is I really wanted to find an organization that I trust, and they're actually a family that's from California. And the woman that's running it kind of had like the same sort of epiphany trip in Tanzania, and they're like on the ground in Tanzania really working with like orphanages and schools. So I knew that that was like a really good fit. But they have a holistic approach. They're sort of like not just like the one pillar for sustained economic growth. They're more like education, health, and job placement for women. And they just focus like our funds into education.
You said earlier that you weren't really a marketer, you weren't a PR. How did you grow your team? How did you learn those skills? When did you start deciding, like, I can't do this alone? Like, Tom's helped you, obviously,
Right.
but when did you start getting your company its cornerstone? Right?
I think it was after leaving there. Luckily, I was able to rope like a couple advisors and mentors from Tom's. There's also another small nonprofit that I worked for after leaving Tom's called Falling Whistles. They're in downtown Los Angeles. It's a campaign for peace in Congo. And once you're sort of like a part of this community, you start to realize how small it is and how all of these like brands that want to help out and give back in whatever way are sort of like a small community and family. And I think it's just like that type of person, like going to Tom's or going to Falling Whistles, like if you want help with something, they want to help you.
So let's talk about the other side of your business that isn't that stuff, because you are fundamentally also, or not fundamentally, but also sort of a fashion company.
Totally.
And so what are the struggles you've had as a fashion company as opposed to the philanthropic organization?
Sure. One of the biggest hurdles for me, we make all of our products in downtown Los Angeles and Orange County. There's this quote that I always like to live by, and I'm going to butcher it, but it's, we're given two hands, one's to help yourself and one's to help others. I always wanted to help these people in Tanzania, but I understood like the more that I did research about education and the more that I did research about like the United States as a whole, like we have issues of our own. And I wanted to create, like, I thought that like keeping production local in the US would be a great way to like help support jobs here. Beyond that, we can go into reasons why we keep it local. But in terms of finding cut and sew shops that can make products at reasonable prices is an extreme challenge. And in most cases, like brands that want to start here, if they get to a certain quantity, like they're forced to go elsewhere.
Right. So what are some of the advantages for now in keeping it local?
There are a ton. I mean, like it's awesome that like we're creating jobs locally, but beyond that, like lead times. I mean, if you want to produce in Asia, you need to do at least like 5,000 or 10,000 units. I'm in the Live Work Loft in downtown Los Angeles, and there's literally a cut and sew shop 2 miles from me, so I can bike over and talk to Aaron and talk to Jason and be like, hey guys, like what are we working on? When are we getting like this next run out? Overseeing quality is huge. I really want to dedicate myself to creating like the best possible product and use like the best possible materials. So seeing that and being really hands-on with that is really important. But I also just really love the connection with people and like the connection with the cut and sew shops. I was doing some research with some sew shops in Asia, and I was getting an email that was in Mandarin or whatever it was. I was putting it into Google Translate to figure out like what it said, and then I was sending it back to them, and they were doing the same thing. And I realized that like there was just absolutely no human connection there, and even though the price was a little bit lower, like it just felt like a really big headache, and decided that I wanted to commit to making it here as long as possible.
Is there anything that you think that you wish you would have done differently in building your company so far?
Yeah, I think there are plenty of things.
Lots of things.
One of the big things I think is we like literally just started with this one product. Like this backpack is called the Benson after my porter. What I would have done is launched with probably 2 or maybe 3 styles of backpacks at different price points with different materials, so that I could be A/B testing and understand like, okay, over the past year that we've been operating, like what do people actually want? Because until we can, like, I think the best way to understand what the market wants is just like giving it to people, trying to sell it to buyers and trying to sell it to directly to people like you, to see like, do you want a $75 backpack, or do you just want to be a part of the brand and purchase a backpack that's $40? Or maybe you want something that's like competitive with a Filson backpack and it has like leather details and 22-ounce canvas, you know?
And you're doing that now, right? You're expanding your product line.
Correct. So we just launched like a really simple utility case. It's just like a little pencil pouch, comes with a pencil. But we're coming out with another style of backpack in December. And then I think we might also be doing some like device-driven stuff. So like iPad cases and padded laptop sleeves, that sort of stuff. I just heard that Apple sold like 27 or 37 million iPads in the last quarter.
We'll
So
never catch on.
I'm thinking there might be a small market.
Open it up.
Cool. Yeah.
Open it up. Who's first?
Could you speak more to what goes on in Tanzania and how the funds come in and how they get distributed?
Yeah, totally. So right now, like I said, $10 from each purchase goes to the Knock Foundation. They started an orphanage there and are also working with some primary schools. So those funds are being distributed into scholarships, school supplies, and school lunches. But one thing that I really want to focus on, which we haven't been able to get to because we just haven't sold enough backpacks, is really focusing on secondary education. There's a big gap in Tanzania between primary school and secondary school. The cost and tuition just like really jumps, and that's when kids really start dropping out of school. So we want to look at and identify like the potential leaders in the community in Tanzania and invest in them like year after year after year to see that they're succeeding, like not next year, but like 5-10 years down the line.
Can you talk a little bit about distribution? Like how are you getting these out? Do you have wholesale buyers who are getting them into retail outlets? Or are you doing it online?
So we're primarily online right now. We're in a pop-up shop on Abakini, just down the road, and a handful of other retailers. 2013 is going to be like very big for retail. We're on a few other online platforms, but in terms of like 2013, like that's a really big part of the strategy. And we're going to be trying to get into a bunch of boutiques and also like majors accounts.
All of your startup funding, is it like personally funded, or have you thought about bringing in, or have you brought in other investors, and how did you decide to structure that?
Totally. It's basically just been like an extreme hustle for me, because I was coming off of like a couple internships at Tom's and then working at a nonprofit where I was making no more money than I was interning. So like the money that I've spent on like building it has been through family. And then a couple other like small investments, but like I'm really working on approaching investors right now. Yeah. Now that we have like a little bit of proof of concept and sold like a couple thousand backpacks, now we can go to investors and say like, here's the traction that we have. Like we're actually selling a product. Invest in us.
I noticed you did a Fab deal not too long ago. Are you seeing the results, or are there any results? I know you sold a lot through Fab, but kind of like afterwards in terms of brand awareness and...
Brand awareness on Fab was pretty good, but it wasn't as great as like some other sites that we've been on. We've had like, I think we had a couple bloggers reach out after being on Fab. But for the main part, I think like selling a ton of backpacks in 3 days on Fab was huge. Because we just did a survey a couple months ago from I think like everyone that bought a backpack in the first 8 months. Not everyone got back to us, but what we sort of like crunched from that data is that over 50% of the people that bought a backpack had heard about us through word of mouth. So just having like those extra people that bought backpacks on Fab, I know are now like brand advocates and out in the world like telling our story and spreading the word.
How are you getting people to discover your website and your story?
Sure,
and
yeah.
actually purchasing products?
Press is like number one. It's also been a challenge. I'm realizing that like the more personal you can be with editors, the better. Just like kind of stalking them for 30 minutes or an hour is much better than just like sending out like a mass email to a bunch of editors. We had like a press hit, just as an example, in Time Out New York for the blue backpack. It was like a chambray editorial piece, and it was just really fascinating to see like when that piece came out and like how many blue backpacks we sold in the next week, because it was sort of like a spike in blue backpacks. So it's really fascinating just to see like how quick consumers are to really like having buy-in to like an article or a publication.
What was the type of internship you did at Tom's, and how would you say that helped you in particular?
Totally. I did two. The first one was in e-commerce, which was extremely helpful because the platform that they use to sell their shoes and eyewear, I'm now using to sell my backpacks. So I'm familiar with like the back end of the website, and I'm able to train like an intern relatively quickly on like how to operate, like ship orders and upload product, that sort of stuff. That was helpful. In terms of that first internship, I think it was more helpful just to like understand the business. The cool thing about being at Tom's is like they literally just like want to teach you as much as they possibly can. And you'll go to shoe school and they'll teach you everything about production. And you'll go like have lunches with people from the giving department and they'll talk to you about like how to give responsibly and give sustainably and how to like create an impact in this world. So beyond just like what I was doing day to day, just understanding like the bit, I kind of like consider being at Tom's for 8 months like my business school in a way. And then my second 4 months I was in the creative department, which really helped understand like how I can just create like, you know, compelling banners for websites and ads and that sort of stuff.
The one most valuable piece of information you've taken from your experience building this company?
Embrace your community. And if you have ideas about something, don't be worried that someone's going to steal them. Like, just embrace your community. Everyone's too damn busy to steal your ideas. Just like talk to people about it and see if they can help you.
There it is.